Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session on state of road safety in India. Before we start, I wanted to introduce ourselves first. And so, starting with me, I am Rahul Goyal. I'm an assistant professor at Transportation Research and Injury Prevention Center. It's called TRIP Center. And my research work is on looking at transportation's impact on human health. So, transportation can impact human health through air pollution. It can impact it through traffic injuries. People get injured, people die also in traffic injuries, which is what we'll talk about today. And it also impacts health through making people physically active. So if you are walking and cycling a lot, it's good for your health. So I do a lot of work on trying to understand the linkage between transportation and health, and also do work on identifying what are the solutions for making transportation a better, transportation better in society. So people are healthier because of it. So I'll pass it on to Professor Girish Agarwal for introductions. No, use.
That depends on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm Girish Agarwal. I'm a professor at TRIP Center, and I primarily do work on law and policy related to transport with a focus on vulnerable road users. And I also work on urban issues, specifically looking at small towns and air quality and urban heat island issues in those towns. And of course, road safety. That's the core thing of what we all do.
And I'm Geetam Tiwari. I'm an emeritus professor at TRIP Center. So my work primarily focuses on how to make public transport systems, facilities for pedestrians, bicycling safer. Because primarily people are, first of all, we do find a lot of people walking and bicycling in Delhi and in India. However, these people are what we call captive users. They are using it क्योंकि उनके पास कोई दूसरा option नहीं है. तो हम इन facilities को how we design it in such a way that when we have other options, we should still prefer to walk and bicycle, because those trips are short trips. We don't have to go long distances, and we also find that it is safe and convenient and comfortable to walk and bicycle these distances. So primarily focusing on design of urban roads and highways, how to make it safer by design.
So what we will do in the seminar today is it will be like a panel discussion. I will be moderating the session. I'll ask some questions to Professor Tiwari and Professor Agarwal, and for every question I'll also open it to the floor. So if you want to ask any questions related to that topic, you can ask. So this is how we are going to do. So before we start, I wanted to introduce the topic of road safety in India. So सबसे पहले I wanted to give some आंकड़े क्या हैं रोड सेफ्टी के. So भारत की आबादी अभी 140 करोड़ है, 1.4 बिलियन पीपल, और उसमें 2022 का नंबर देखें तो उसमें हमारे 1,70,000 लोग मरते हैं रोड डेथ्स में, 1.7 lakhs. और जो सड़क दुर्घटना को जो पॉपुलेशन रेट में एक्सप्रेस करते हैं, तो उसके हिसाब से 12 लोग मरते हैं प्रति 1 lakh पीपल. सो 12 people dying every 1 lakh population. Or if we compare that number to some other countries which have successfully reduced their road death numbers, so that number is about 2 or 3 in the United Kingdom, which is about 12 in India. It is about 4 in Australia. It is about 2 or 3 same in countries like Norway, Sweden. So the point is that road safety was a historical problem in all of these countries, but they have solved it, but we are still lagging behind. The other major problem with road safety is, and I think a lot of people in this group would know, is that people who die in road deaths are among the youngest people in the country. So the number I gave you, that about 12 deaths per 1 lakh population, if we look at that number for different age groups, that number is very, very high for people from 18 to 45 year age group. That is among the Young people, these are the people who are the working population. So their death is not only, of course, a tragedy for the families involved, but it is also a loss of productivity and in the society. So that is one. और जो एक related topic है is okay, 1.7 lakh people die. Or agar, if you look at Delhi, let's just look at Delhi because we are here. So about 1200 people die in Delhi every year. So that number is 1200 people every year. And if we break it down into what type of mode of transportation those people were using who died, so then about out of 1200, 450 people are motorcyclists, about 400 or so are pedestrians, and there are other numbers for cyclists, car users, and all that. Generally, in India, nationally, and even in countries, of the total people who die, the proportion for car users who are dying, car occupants, is very small. So a large proportion of the people who die on Indian roads are not sitting in the cars, they're outside the cars. So these are the major statistics. And so I'll start with some questions. And the first question would be what relates to the topic of the seminar today, which is looking at road safety as a public health issue. So I would ask Professor Tiwari about, why should we consider road safety as a public health issue, and what does it mean?
So, first of all, we do have lessons from many other countries who have solved this problem, where the number of deaths on roads have come down. And one of the important lessons we get from there is that almost 3 to 4 decades back, public traffic crashes were understood as a public health issue. What does it mean? It means that just like any other disease, जैसे हमको मलेरिया होता है या ट्यूबरक्लोसिस होता है या मोस्ट रिसेंटली कोविड, ये बीमारियां किसी को भी हो सकती हैं. ये ज़रूरी नहीं है कि रोड पर 3-4 लोग 100 लोग साथ में जा रहे थे तो हर एक को हुआ. किसी को भी हो सकता है, कहीं भी हो सकता है. तो trying to understand that as a disease, which means that first you try and understand what causes the problem, what is the root cause of that disease. In the case of malaria, what is it? It is a bacteria. Bacteria which is being brought to you by mosquito. And when the mosquito bites you, you get the disease. Same kind of analogy was understood for traffic crashes, that why people get hurt, and that sometimes that hurt, what I am calling, that is so severe that people can die, is because of the level of energy that gets transferred to a body. And where is that energy coming from? Speed. So if a motorcycle was going at a high speed and hits a tree or a pole next to a road, the person can die. So what is in this whole phenomena the root cause? Because the motorcycle was going fast, the motorcycle hit the tree. If the motorcycle had not hit the tree, then the person wouldn't die. So public health issue in here, in this whole phenomena is that we have to take care of the speed. All the problem will not be solved because the speed is under control. We will have to take care of that when we are designing the road, the tree shouldn't be there, where by mistake the motorcycle can go and hit the tree. And of course then we also will look at that what can the motorcyclist do? Wear a helmet. That reduces your probability of getting injured and death. So किसी एक स्ट्रैटेजी से हम किसी भी बीमारी को सॉल्व नहीं करते हैं. सबसे बड़ी बात तो ये है. और दूसरी ये कि इंडिविजुअल ही सब कुछ नहीं कर सकता, पूरे सिस्टम को रिस्पॉन्ड करना. तो इसको ये हमारे मतलब अंडरस्टैंडिंग में होना चाहिए कि हम पहले उसके रूट कॉज को समझें, जो स्पीड है, उस स्पीड से क्या प्रॉब्लम होती है, कितना लेवल ऑफ स्पीड हम ह्यूमन बॉडी टॉलरेट कर सकती है, और उसके बाद फिर हम रोड डिज़ाइन कैसे करें, व्हीकल डिज़ाइन कैसे करें कि ये जो इंटरेक्शन है जिसकी वजह से जो इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है ये कम हो जाए. और आप खुद ही देख सकते हैं कि जो रोड डिज़ाइन है, जो व्हीकल डिज़ाइन है, वो तो किसी इंडिविजुअल के हाथ में नहीं है, वो तो किसी और लेवल पे होना है. तो वो भी उतना ही ज़रूरी है.
So before I ask any question to Professor Agarwal first, may I ask how many of you have been involved in a traffic accident? Okay. That is a huge number of people getting involved in traffic accident.
Minor injuries.
So we know why they are here. So Professor Agarwal, may I ask you, what does a public health issue mean to an individual? Because right now in this room we are talking to people. How should they look at it?
Okay, so see again the analogy that Professor Tiwari was using about looking at it as a disease. Right? There's some level that you can do, I mean some precautions you can take at an individual level. Right? Like in COVID, we were all wearing masks. Right? But if everyone had just stopped at just wearing masks and there was no vaccine development, like no steps taken by the state in any form, that would have lasted much, much longer. Right? Same issue with road crashes. Right? If you're not wearing a helmet on a mobile, right? If an accident happens, if a crash happens, your chances of dying are much higher. Right? What is the state's role, the government's role in that? Right? As a system, what we need to do is minimize the chances of the energy transfer going from the impact to your body. Right? Simple physics that if a 1-ton car hits you, right? The lightest cars are 110. You can wear whatever padding and helmets you want, you're going to die. Right? If it hits you at anything more than 30 kilometers per hour. Right? What would be the solution to that? Right? Cutting down the speed of the car, right? Building systems where if you have heavy traffic, right? Provide some kind of isolation for pedestrians. Right? On motorcycles again, speed limitation, what people are wearing. So one has to start thinking of it as that on an individual level, there's only so much you can do, and your risk at an individual level is low. Like Rahul said, Delhi में हर साल 400-500 लोग मरते हैं जो मोटरसाइकिल पे होते हैं. Right? But if you look at the number of motorcycles in Delhi, right, and the number of trips a day, how many times each of you who has a motorcycle, right, is getting on and off your motorbike at least about 1,000 times a year? Right? Even if you're just making 2 trips a day, that 4 on and off, right? Your chance of dying in a motorcycle crash, right? Your individual chance is probably, if you keep riding a motorcycle twice a day for 100 years, right, then there's an appreciable probability of dying. Right? But if you look at it at a population level, right, in a country which has, what is the number now, about 22 crore motorcycles?
Yeah.
On Vahan, that's the number shows, right? That means there's 40 to 50 crore trips a day being made on motorcycles. Right? And nationally, we have about 35 to 40,000 people on motorcycles dying every year. Right? That is roughly 10 people a day. Right? On 50 crore trips, 10 people dying, individual risk is tiny. Right? But on a national scale, that's a big problem. Right? There's more deaths than a lot of diseases. Right? Deaths due to road crashes is among the top 10 causes of death for people between 18 and 40. So,
Go ahead. Then
No.
I want to add to this point a little bit.
so the solutions have to come at the state level. Right? Not just at an individual or institutional level, they have to come at a state level. Right? Things like some changes have been made, daytime running lights on motorcycles. Right? Most new cars have daytime running lights, which makes them more visible. Right? Speed control issues, wherever there impacts, right? Making the sides of the road such that they absorb energy, right? Changing the physical layout. Just think about it. On campus, right? There are no really long straight stretches of road. Right? So you cannot, however much you try, right, you cannot run a car at 120 kmph on campus. Right? 100 मीटर के बाद टर्न आ जाता है, गोल चक्कर आ जाता है, कुछ आ जाता है. If you replicated something like that at a city-wide level, where you do not make straight stretches, for instance, intersections you put roundabouts. IIT में main gate के पास जो roundabout है, that's a perfect example. You cannot speed through that intersection. You have to slow down and come around the roundabout. That's a safety measure at a system level. So variations on that, there are hundreds of ways things can be changed. Right? Everything from road surface to road width. Think about it on highways.
But let's come back to
हाँ.
individual risk that you talked
Yeah.
about.
So
And I want to ask here, because many people raise their hands that they have been involved in a crash, and you all are from IIT, so you should be able to tell us what is your individual probability of getting involved in a crash. Let's say you were involved in once or twice in injury crash, obviously, not a fatal crash. So what's your probability of getting involved in a crash? Can you calculate it? Individual probability. Because our decisions on the roads are based on what we understand or what is our perception of personal risk, right? Not societal risk. Today you decide to walk or take a bicycle or motorcycle based on your personal risk. So what is your individual probability of getting involved in it?
0.1.
Can somebody ask?
0.1.
How did you calculate 0.1?
1000 trip, one accident maybe. 10 to the power
But
percent.
1000 trips, just 1 minute. 1000 trips over what time period?
you take a chalk and write it here.
No, they can just.
Over a year.
Take me the chalk.
So-
But did you
Write
was
the motorcycle wala numbers.
so you have been making trips all your life since the time you started walking, right? And in this long life, you have met with an injury crash once. So your numerator is 1, you are right, but denominator is much larger than 1000, right? It would be, you can say, if let's say if you're 30 years old, in every year you have approximately 400 days, so 30 into 400, number of days you have been, that's your denominator. So individual risk is extremely low, isn't it? You wanted to say something?
So I think
So you say that there are about 50 crore trips a day all over India.
by motorcycles.
And how many people die? 10 about.
Sorry?
How many people die?
About 40,000 motorcyclists.
About 100 a day.
100 a day.
Huh.
Okay, then maybe something of the order of 10 to the power minus 7.
But see, that is not personal risk. That's the difference.
So look,
That is
the
the
point is
societal risk.
the point is not to arrive at a mathematical number, because that's not the calculation we are doing on a daily basis. But the point here is that there is a large gap between how you look at road safety as an individual or how you look at road safety at the societal level.
Yeah.
So when we will come back to why this point is very important later during the discussion, because a lot of interventions, what solutions we need to have on road safety depends on this understanding.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to point out that our decisions, personal decisions of travel, not travel, which mode to use, which route to choose, is based on our personal perceptions. And then, just now that we calculated with you, because the personal perception of risk is very low, we don't change our behavior based on low probability events.
And also,
Anywhere in the world.
we'll talk of education later, but one of the standard things that a lot of people in policy making in government departments will tell you, if you can just educate people. Right?
So Girish, I want to come back to that point later.
So I'm just mentioning
yeah.
that as a prelude to saying that all of us see risky behavior every day. Right? All the motorcyclists, scooters weaving in and out of traffic कि बस के आगे काट लेते हैं करते हैं. It's not that they don't know that it's dangerous, right? But they have an intuitive understanding that their chance of getting hit is very, very low. Right? They've been doing it 5 times a day for years, right? आज तक तो कुछ हुआ नहीं, मैक्सिमम थोड़ा सा कहीं से पेंट स्क्रैच हो गया. It's fine. Right? No one, when you're riding, you're not thinking in terms of कि अच्छा 22 करोड़ और लोग हैं जो ये कर रहे हैं. So that's why we call it a societal risk and disease. Right? Because in any given disease, again, your personal risk is low. Right? It's only when you get diagnosed with something that your risk level goes up. And even then, doctors will tell you 1 in 3 chance, 1 in 4 chance, 1 in 5 chance.
So, Professor Tiwari, so you touched upon speed as a risk factor, and so speed is something that people would perceive as something that individuals are deciding, the operating speed. And I mean, you said that speed is an important risk factor for how many people are dying on the road. So could you please connect, defining road safety as a public health issue and how speed comes into play?
So, just like in any disease, we identify or find out which bacteria was causing it. So, as I said earlier, in this disease, the road traffic crash disease, speed is the bacteria. And why we call it bacteria? Because your simple physics tell you that you're going at a certain speed, it has an energy, kinetic energy, half mv squared. And when there is an impact, this energy gets transferred to a body. And a body is designed quote unquote, for certain amount of impact. Now, through evolutionary processes, human body is designed for walking speed. For millions of years, our body has evolved, our muscles, bones and head, everything for walking. So anything beyond that starts getting hurt. Our muscles will get hurt, our blood vessels will break, our bones will break, etc. So speed is this bacteria. Now through research, what we have understood through a large number of empirical research, that if the impact speed is 30 kilometers or less than 30, for a pedestrian to die, the chances are only 8% or less. Same vehicle, same driver hits a pedestrian at 50 or above, 50 kilometers per hour or above. The chances of fatality suddenly jumps up to 85%. So whether a person will live or die gets decided by the speed that the vehicle was going. On campus, we see a lot of students, all of you are walking on the road, and if the vehicles, cars and motorcycles also, if they end up hitting a pedestrian above 50 kilometers per hour, the chances of dying is very high. So this is very well understood that how speed control is the root cause.
Is this class for the wellness course?
I don't know. This is a discussion on road safety.
Okay, like there is nothing related. No.
Well, it is wellness also. If you wish to join us, that is fine.
No, ma'am. Like, is this under that NEN 212?
No, it's not that.
Thank you.
It's wellness for society for sure. So sorry,
speed is the root cause.
But it seems that speed is a personal decision.
Absolutely. So I wanted to come to that now. That at what speed drivers drive is a function of how we have designed the infrastructure. The driver's adoption of speed is not because of just the technology or because we have put certain signboards. So we do put signboards that on campus people should not be driving above. I think on campus it is 30 kilometers per hour.
But it should be 50.
It is based on this understanding only that if you drive at 30, by the time you hit a person, because you have applied brakes, so the speed comes down. Now, why everybody may not drive at 30? Because if we design straight roads, wide roads, then the perception of driver of safety is enhanced. We feel comfortable driving fast. And despite having the speed limit signs, the drivers will drive faster. Because see, everybody, you look at your own behavior next time you are driving, you are in a hurry to reach wherever you want to reach. At that time, you are not so worried about what is written as a signpost or your understanding that if I hit somebody at 30 or 50, what will happen. It is based on how comfortable you feel driving at that point. And through research, what we have understood, if we design wide roads, if we design wide lanes, straight roads, then people tend to drive fast. But at the same time, if we can break the line of sight, so for example, the roundabout, the moment you enter the main gate, you cannot see beyond the roundabout. So the driver automatically has to slow down. So this is how you are influencing driver behavior. Next, you have seen that many places where we want to bring down the speed, we make vertical deflections. रोड को उसमें थोड़ा सा ऐसे ही स्पीड हम बना देते हैं, थोड़ा उसको 4 inches or 6 inches रेस कर देते हैं, so the vehicles cannot go fast. So both by design of what people drivers see in the peripheral view, and by doing these vertical deflections, you influence the driver behavior. So driver behavior is best influenced by changing the road design, and then comes the question of enforcement.
I think if there is one message that people here want to take away from the seminar today, it's this: that what behavior we see on the road, which we know increases the chances of people getting injured, that behavior can be controlled by design. And it links to treating road safety as a public health issue. If it's a public health issue, that the government needs to do something about it. And one thing that we know government does is build roads. So how you build those roads becomes very important. You want to add?
Oh, just the same thing that, I mean, again, there's enough evidence for this that if you narrow roads down, right, people's speed goes down. So on highways, when you go through construction zones, even though when you're driving, you're only really using 6 to 7 feet of road width. Right? Lanes can be 12, 14, 15 feet. Construction zone, if the lane has been dropped to 8 feet, people slow down. Right? If you think there's a wall next to you, people slow down. Right? Even though strictly objectively, there is really no physical difference in the space you're driving in. Right? So it's the geometry, it's the visual perception that makes a big difference as to what's happening. All of us tend to speed. Right? Automatically होता है, गाड़ी चला रहे हैं तो your foot keeps going down. Right? Because you see an empty road, you see no obstructions, so you tend to speed up. Right? That's why Professor Mohan used to say that auto rickshaws in Delhi, right, are one of the biggest lifesavers. Because हर चीज़ के बीच में घुस जाते हैं to slow traffic down. If there were no auto rickshaws, your average traffic speed will go up and road deaths will go up.
Are there any questions from the audience?
So now here with the speed and wider roads, do you think that when we talk about speed, wider roads, one reason is I think because there's a perception that it decongest's the road, right? And someone might think that more number of greater congestion means more number of vehicles means greater chance of risk. But what you are saying is actually counterintuitive.
Yeah.
So do policymakers actually take this point of view that wider roads are actually more unsafe?
I want to just repeat the question for the sake of recording. So, and it's a really good question, by the way. So he's saying that people want wider roads because the perception is that it will solve the congestion problem, and we'll see that it doesn't. And the other thing is, another sort of justification for reducing congestion would be that if vehicles are not driving very close to each other, it might make roads safer. So this is something. Professor Tiwari, you want to say something about this?
Yeah, this is a very well researched also topic, because the initial understanding of civil engineers was this, that as vehicles are increasing, we need more space, of course, because you need to move more vehicles on the road. And congestion, the very definition of congestion is that your speeds are come down. You are not able to go at your desired speed. So we kept on adding lanes. So two things happens. Number one, if we add more lanes for cars, more vehicles come on the road because you have made the environment easier for cars, right? So you're inviting actually more car traffic. But now coming to the issue that you raised, because in the same small space, if there are more vehicles, then there are more chances of conflicts. That is absolutely true. There will be more conflicts, but the severity of injury gets decided by the speed. So if there are more vehicles, there are more conflicts, but there are low level conflicts. They don't lead to injury crashes. And so the interesting research part that I wanted to share with you, that there was a lot of research done that let's increase the width of the lane because it gives more space to everyone and you have enough time to control your driver behavior. But when they did empirical studies on it and very nice, robust sound studies understanding this topic, what was found was that whether you increase the width of the lane or width of the shoulder, the space which is next to the main carriageway, that is also designed so that in emergency maneuver vehicles can go and stand there. The moment we increased that, they found that there was a relation. It had a strong relationship with increasing number of crashes, which is quite counterintuitive.
And fatal crashes.
And then finally they found that it gets related to increase in speed. So theoretically this has been now explained as whatever we do on the road has two impacts. One is called the engineering effect, that you increase more lane width and there is more space. And now you have given more space to drivers so they will drive safely. Second thing happens, what is called behavioral adaptation. The driver sees more space and driver starts feeling more comfortable driving faster. So the moment you increase speed, now with speed we have undisputed relationship with crashes, and what has been established that no matter what speed, every 1% increase in speed leads to 4% increase in fatal crashes, and it leads to about 7 to 8% increase in injury crashes. So with increase in speed or decrease in speed, it has same relationship with severity of crashes. So we need more lanes if the number of cars are going up. But then the lesson is, since on our roads we have pedestrians, we have bicyclists, we must address their safety concerns. Otherwise, of course, it doesn't solve congestion problem because there are always more vehicles on the road. But it is in non-peak hours, when there are fewer vehicles on the same road, people start going at a very high speed and it becomes a really high risk to pedestrians and motorcyclists and everybody, including car drivers.
Yes, please.
मैम मेरे को जैसे आपने बार बार बात हाईलाइट की है कि स्पीड को हमें कंट्रोल में रखना चाहिए, लेकिन मैंने भी 2 महीने पहले भी गाड़ी चलानी सीखी है, तो मैं सेमिनार में सिर्फ इसलिए आया हूँ देखने के लिए, मैंने एक्सपीरियंस किया है। मेरे को भी मन करता है कम स्पीड में चलाने का, लेकिन पीछे से जो है ना हॉर्न मारते हैं, वो कहते हैं कि तुम इतनी स्पीड अनाड़ी हो गया, साइड से निकलते ही कहते हैं अनाड़ी हो गया, तुम चलाना नहीं आता है क्या, तो फिर उसमें प्रॉब्लम आती है। मेरा मन गाड़ी चलाने का करता नहीं है बिल्कुल भी।
अच्छा,
मतलब ये तो मेरा सुझाव तो ये होगा कि आपको ज़्यादा चिंता नहीं करनी चाहिए दूसरे लोग क्या कह रहे हैं। यू शुड कंटिन्यू टू ड्राइव एट वॉट यू फील कंफर्टेबल। आपको जो लोग हॉर्न कर रहे हैं, ये कर रहे हैं, बिल्कुल इग्नोर करिए। और अगर कोई कैंपस में अगर कोई आपके ऊपर हॉर्न बजा रहा है, उनका तो नंबर नोट करिए और उनको आप सिक्योरिटी ऑफिस में उनका नंबर दे दीजिए।
कैंपस में नहीं, बाहर सड़कों में, कैंपस से बाहर।
कैंपस के बाहर ये है, उसमें ये लोग ऐसे होते हैं इम्पेशेंट हम लोगों, मतलब अगर आपको जो भी स्पीड आपको कंफर्टेबल लग रही है, आपको उसी पे चलाना चाहिए। अब ऐसा तो नहीं है कि अगर कोई 80 किलोमीटर की रोड है उस पर आप 5 किलोमीटर स्पीड से जा रहे हैं, मेरे ख्याल से आप ये तो नहीं कर रहे हैं।
नहीं,
पर आप खाली जैसे जो हमारी मेन रोड है 50 किलोमीटर जिसमें स्पीड लिमिट है, हो सकता है उस पर आप 30 पे चला रहे हो, कोई बात नहीं, आप 30 पे चलाते रहिए। आपको एक्चुअली ये भी रिसर्च में निकला है कि ड्राइविंग स्कूल जाकर हम ये तो सीख लेते हैं कि गाड़ी को कैसे हैंडल करना है, लेकिन सेफ ड्राइवर बनने के लिए हमें एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए रोड पर। तो धीरे धीरे समझ में आता है कि कब ज़्यादा चलाओ कब कम चलाओ। और जैसे मैंने बताया, स्पीड तो जो रोड डिज़ाइन है वो डिसाइड करेगा। जितना आपको कॉन्फिडेंस आएगा, तो आप देखिएगा अभी 1 साल बाद जो ये रोड है ना IIT के सामने, आउटर रिंग रोड, इस पर आप 80 किलोमीटर चलाएंगे रात को, क्योंकि यहाँ से आप चलिए फ्लाईओवर के बाद से उतरिए और वहाँ बिल्कुल एक के बाद एक फ्लाईओवर है, रेड लाइट तो है ही नहीं कहीं, और रात में तो ज़्यादा ट्रैफिक नहीं है, वो ट्रैफिक तो बाद में होता है। तो अगर ऐसी हम रोड बनाएंगे तो लोग ज़रूर तेज़ स्पीड से चलाएंगे। तो उस समय अगर आप 30 पे चला रहे हैं तो पीछे वाले इरिटेट होंगे। लेकिन जहाँ तक आपका सवाल है, आप जिस स्पीड पे कंफर्टेबल हैं वही करिए, और जो लोग हॉर्न बजा रहे हैं आप अपना उनको आपको इग्नोर करना पड़ेगा।
आप ये भी देखिए ना कि शहरों में, दिल्ली नहीं किसी भी शहर में, एक पॉइंट से दूसरे पॉइंट अगर आप टोटल टाइम लें कि जब घर में उठ के खड़े हुए कि जाना है और जहाँ कहीं जा रहे थे वहाँ जाके बैठे पहुँच गए, वो टोटल टाइम का आपका एवरेज स्पीड 20-25 से ज़्यादा नहीं आएगा। आप सड़क पे 50-60 चला रहे हैं 5 मिनट के लिए, कुछ फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता। तो पीछे से कोई हॉर्न बजा रहा है, साइड में हो जाओ, जाओ भाई, 5 मिनट में दुनिया नहीं बदल जाएगी।
But I think we'll come back to this topic because we should also not treat the operating speeds that we have on the roads as the correct speed. We need to think about that also, and we'll come back to that for enforcement. And so one thing, I mean, we have been doing this work on road safety for many years, and recently what we found is that of the total road deaths that we see in different states of India, about 60% of the victims are motorcyclists. So motorcycle deaths on the road is becoming a very serious issue. Yes. And also recently the ownership has been rising very fast. The rate of ownership of motorcycle is growing at a very fast rate. And you can imagine, I mean, this you know from being on the road and yourself also, that the people who drive motorcycles are also young people. And this relates to what I was telling you in the beginning, that a lot of people who die on the roads are very young people. So, and one solution that we know, I mean, which is an obvious solution, is for motorcyclists to wear helmets. But of course, people don't wear helmets. So what do you think will be the solution for it? Can anybody tell me from the audience? If people are not wearing helmets on the road when they are riding motorcycles, how do you make them wear it? Exactly. So it's called enforcement. So Professor Agarwal, could you explain, the need for enforcement? So Professor Tiwari has explained that you can change design of the road to influence how drivers behave, but there is also a very important component of enforcement.
Yeah. So, see, one of the main problems we have in the country is lack of traffic enforcement, right? Laws हैं, सब कुछ है, fines बढ़ाते जा रहे हैं, सिर्फ उससे फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता. Enforcement has to be there and enforcement has to be visible. If you know कि हर दूसरे चौराहे पे there is a police गाड़ी waiting, right? And there is a high chance you will get stopped, right? See, people hate being made to wait for half an hour, फॉर्म भर रहे हैं, कुछ कर रहे हैं, जो कर रहे हैं सड़क के किनारे, versus 500,000, 2,000 का फाइन, right? So it's not the amount, it's the enforcement and how it's done, right? दिल्ली में, for those of you long-term residents, we know that Mr. Satyendra Garg Delhi Police का traffic unit head करते थे. So he had done some very clever things at a few of the major intersections. पुलिसमैन खड़े कर दिए थे, उस टाइम हाथ के वो कैमरा लेके जो भी गाड़ी थोड़ा बहुत आगे पीछे होती थी उनकी फ़ोटो लेते जाते थे. चलान भेजे ना भेजे ये बात नहीं है, बट द परसेप्शन वाज कि अरे चलान आ जाएगा. सो फॉर अ वाइल देयर एट सम ऑफ द मेजर इंटरसेक्शंस पीपल वर एक्चुअली स्टॉपिंग बिफोर द ज़ीब्रा क्रॉसिंग्स. लाइट्स नहीं रन कर रहे थे, एंड दैट वाज विजिबल एनफोर्समेंट. एक्चुअल चलान कितने होते हैं इज़ नॉट द क्रिटिकल इशू. द इशू इज द परसेप्शन कि चलान हो जाएगा, रोकेंगे मेरे को 1 घंटा. माई पर्सनल टेक इज कि एक्चुअली चलान घर के बराबर में होना चाहिए. पड़ोसियों के सामने सड़क पे खड़ा करके, तो पीपल डोंट लाइक डूइंग दैट. टाइम आधा घंटा टाइम चला गया आपका. दैट हैज एन इम्पैक्ट. इफ यू नो कि एनफोर्समेंट के चांस बहुत लो हैं, so that's why even the camera based enforcement has a lot of other problems, right? But the one thing it does is, if people know you have camera hain, they automatically slow down. Whether the camera is functional or not, they don't know. Whether a challan will come from that, they don't know, but they'll still slow down. That's visible enforcement. The hidden cameras don't really work. Hidden cameras really only have a revenue generating purpose. It doesn't help enhance safety. All kinds of little things. We'll talk in a while about parking and linked to pedestrian safety, but all of that is an enforcement issue. Right? On campus, right? रोज मेन बिल्डिंग के आगे जो गार्ड खड़े होते हैं, right? I give them a mini lecture क्योंकि वो somebody comes and parks their car and goes away and they say sir ये senior sir थे, ये थे वो थे. ऐसे कोई भी हो, आपका काम है कि यहाँ नहीं खड़ी करने दे गाड़ी, because that blocks the pedestrian access. Students then have to walk around and go. Right? Campus at least still has a degree of enforcement. Right? That's why you don't see the level of chaos you'll see outside, the level of risk. Right? All of you who live in and around campus know that walking through campus, right, your perception of safety is much higher. Right? That you're going to get hit as soon as you step out onto the outer ring road. Right? That goes up immediately. Right? Enforcement issue. On the days that on the Aurobindo Marg outer ring road, if there's a police jeep and police men standing on corners, right, they may not be doing anything. Right? सिर्फ खड़े हुए हैं, the movement of traffic becomes slower. Right? People no longer rush through the intersection, which automatically translates to safety. एक भी चालान नहीं दें, it will still be safer. So enforcement, visible enforcement and follow through. Right now, what are the statistics? About 30% of the challans that are issued get paid.
Yeah.
Right? Largely database issues there. Right? If that is enhanced, that level goes up. That makes a slight difference. But the biggest difference is visible, consistent enforcement.
So I want to ask, are there any questions from the audience related to enforcement or just a comment?
Is there any strategy for highly populated cities, I mean, about the road safety and something like that? You know, to talk about the old Delhi,
Yeah.
the way to see that the level of population and the roads are so narrow.
Yeah.
So इस तरह से चीज़ को solve कैसे किया जा सकता है? What are the solutions the government can take to handle this type of problem?
So the question is that what do we do for places which are highly populated, like Old Delhi? But the answer there is that you don't have to do anything. I mean, Old Delhi.
Yeah, I can add to
The
it.
rate
Actually,
of death
अगर
is
आप
very
देखिए
low.
old Delhi
Almost
area
zero.
में,
Yeah.
दिल्ली में भी हाईएस्ट नंबर ऑफ क्रैशेस जहां हम देखते हैं कि कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड कहाँ है, तो जो ISBT के सामने जो आपकी मेन रोड आती है ना, फ्लाईओवर, उसको देख वो मतलब बिल्कुल अलग दिखाई पड़ता है कि सबसे ज़्यादा फेटैलिटीज़ वहाँ हो रही हैं. तो वो है ओल्ड दिल्ली एरिया में, लेकिन वो आपने बहुत हाई स्पीड, आई थिंक इट इज़ 8 लेन रोड, 4+4 है, और वहाँ पर आपका ISBT है, वहाँ पर मेट्रो स्टेशन है, बस स्टॉप है. तो क्या हो रहा है कि जिसको मेट्रो यूज़ करनी है, जो बसेस से आ रहे हैं, उन लोगों को हमेशा रोड क्रॉस करनी होती है. ऐसा हो नहीं सकता है कि अगर आप पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट यूज़ कर रहे हैं और आपको रोड ना क्रॉस करनी है. तो वहाँ पर ये तो आपने सब डिज़ाइन कर दिया, ISBT हो गया, मेट्रो स्टेशन हो गया, पर ये नहीं सोचा कि जो लोग बस यूज़र्स हैं, जो मेट्रो यूज़र्स हैं, वो रोड कैसे क्रॉस करेंगे. तो अगर आप वहाँ पे खड़े हुए हैं तो क्या होता है कि लोग उतर के, और वहाँ हाई स्पीड रोड है, वहाँ पे रोड लोग दौड़ के क्रॉस करते हैं.
हाईवे पे कर रहे होते
तो
हैं.
मेन प्रॉब्लम इसीलिए वहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा फेटैलिटीज़ हो रही है. तो अब इसका सोल्यूशन क्या है? आपको सोचना चाहिए कि अगर मेट्रो यूज़र है तो रोड तो क्रॉस करेंगे, अगर बस यूज़र है तो रोड क्रॉस करेंगे, तो वहाँ क्या कर सकते हैं? सबसे पहले लोगों को ध्यान में आता है कि या तो फुट ओवर ब्रिज बना दो या अंडर पास बना दो। फुट ओवर ब्रिज पेडेस्ट्रियंस ज़्यादा यूज़ नहीं करना चाहते, क्योंकि फुट ओवर ब्रिज पे आपको 6 मीटर ऊपर जाना है, 6.5 मीटर, उसके बाद रोड क्रॉस करना है। अंडर पास का भी डिज़ाइन बहुत मतलब सोच समझ के बनाना पड़ता है। और जैसे आपने देखा है तो आईआईटी में सबको पता है कि हमारे सामने के अंडर पास में रात को लॉक कर देते हैं क्योंकि क्राइम इशू होता है। तो ग्लोबली ये देखा जाता है कि सबसे बेस्ट सोल्यूशन होता है कि लोगों को सरफेस पे क्रॉस करने की।
At grade crossing जिसे कहते हैं।
इसके मतलब कि आपको जो गाड़ियाँ हैं उनकी स्पीड वहाँ पे कंट्रोल करनी पड़ेगी। हम कह सकते हैं कि यहाँ 8 लेन रोड पे और यहाँ पे हम एट ग्रेड क्रॉसिंग नहीं दे सकते। तो फिर आप दूसरा सोल्यूशन सोचिए कि लोगों को 3 मीटर नीचे ना जाना पड़े और 6 मीटर ऊपर ना जाना पड़े, तो जिसको बोलते हैं हाफ सबवे। जो एग्जाम्पल जैसे आप जाइए कस्तूरबा गांधी मार्ग पे, हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स हाउस के सामने जो रोड क्रॉसिंग है उसको आप ध्यान से देखिएगा कैसे बनेगी। रोड को 1.5 मीटर ऊपर रेज किया है और जो पेडेस्ट्रियन पाथ है वो सिर्फ 1.5 मीटर नीचे जाता है। तो स्टेप्स कम हो जाते हैं,
लाइट रहती है,
वहाँ पे लाइट आती है, रैम्प बना सकते हैं जिसपे व्हील चेयर जा सकती है। तो इस तरह की डिज़ाइन सोचनी है। तो ओल्ड दिल्ली में जैसे एक तो राहुल ने बताया कि जो नैरो रोड्स हैं वो वहाँ पे क्रैशेस नहीं होते हैं,
डेथ्स नहीं होती हैं।
नैरो रोड मतलब कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स बट नॉट डेथ्स, एंड वाइड रोड मीन्स that is where the severity level increases. So that is where we have to solve the problem.
So can I add one thing there? One second. That part of the issue to remember is that roads are not just for cars. See, historically, in other countries when cars started, there was a lot of opposition to letting people drive. Roads are meant for people. Right? यहाँ हमने उल्टा कर दिया. Nationwide, only about 5% of the population even has access to cars. Right? In metro cities like Delhi, 10 to 15% of the population has access. 85% of your population is outside cars. Right? Congestion का रोना तो वही लोग रोते हैं जो गाड़ियों में होते हैं. Right? If I'm walking along the road, congestion नहीं congestion मेरे को क्या फर्क पड़ता है? बल्कि congestion है तो मेरे लिए रोड पार करना आसान है. आप डेथ नंबर्स देखिए दिल्ली में कहाँ डेथ्स होती हैं. ओल्ड दिल्ली के अंदर बहुत कम है. पेरिफेरी पे जहाँ हाई स्पीड रोड है जैसे कि प्रोफेसर तिवारी भी कह रही थी वहाँ होती हैं, पर शहर के अंदर नहीं होती. एंड दैट्स ट्रू ऑल ओवर दिल्ली दैट इन कंजेस्टेड एरियाज विद इन कॉलोनीज ठीक है एक्सीडेंट होते हैं, मोस्टली माइनर एक्सीडेंट्स, डेथ्स नहीं होती हैं. डेथ्स आर ऑल ऑन रोड्स विच हैव अ सर्टेन लेवल ऑफ स्पीड. इफ यू डू नॉट हैव हाई स्पीड you will not have deaths.
You had a question?
Yeah.
So, do you also think that, so once when I went abroad to Denmark, so I just saw that there are few vehicles on the road. One thing which I observed is that the public transport there is very accessible and it goes all 24/7 it's operating. So do you think those countries that you mentioned in the beginning, like the European countries or Australia, do you think that a part of a reason why they can reduce they can make roads safer is also because they invest more in public transport? Do you think that it's that correlation between public transport?
Answer is definitely yes, and especially these Nordic countries, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland. These are small countries, but overall they have done a huge amount of work in investing in public transport, investing in bicycle infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure, and redoing their roads completely. This includes UK also. Actually, UK is also one of the safest countries. So in all these so-called safe countries, including Japan, actually in Asia, Japan also stands out as a very, very safe country. Heavily investing in public transport, and I want to point out one thing. Public transport means that you think about it. If you have to use a bus, how will you use it? Your first segment of the journey is walking. So every single public transport user, whether bus or metro, is first a pedestrian. So improving public transport also means first improve the pedestrian infrastructure.
Access.
Second, I said every public transport user will have to cross the road. If not in the morning, in the evening, you will be getting off on the other side of the road. So you have to think about it, where to locate the bus stop, where to, so that you can give a safe and convenient crossing. And third important point which has come out from lot of understanding, research, that, and we discussed here also, for all of us, comfort and convenience comes first as compared to risk. When we are on the road, first we are looking for what is most comfortable for us, what is most convenient. So our perception is that we run across the road and it's convenient, you're not going up and down. It has high risk. But our behavior is firstly influenced by comfort and convenience perception. So as systemic changes, we have to include comfort, convenience with safety.
Yeah.
We know that people will cross the road at grade. How can we make it safe? That's the challenge to the experts, people who are involved in this.
And I think one thing we should be very clear about is that, Professor Tiwari mentioned about design changes on the road. There's talk about enforcement also. But one systematic problem is what you touched upon earlier also, that there's a belief that widening the road will reduce congestion. So, and that goes completely against the road safety problem. So, in the countries that you just mentioned, in the Nordic countries, there is now a political belief that first of all, road safety is an important issue, and also that it's not the convenience on the road should not be the priority. Is not the car users; it's the people who are cycling, walking, and using public transportation. So a large part of why road safety remains a very complex issue and unsolved issue in India is also this political belief of widening the roads, having very fast roads, having lots and lots of cars, and of course, at a policy level, no priorities for pedestrians and public transportation users. So none of the solutions that we are talking about in this class, in the seminar today, would be possible if there is no political leadership and from or public pressure for it.
See, road safety is not a political issue yet, and it should be, given the number. Just think of it this way. Right? It's a common analogy that 160,000 deaths a year means about 3,000 to 4,000 deaths a week. Right? A standard Indigo flight has 300 people. If you had 10 full planes crashing every week and dying, right? Think of what the political reaction would be, right? Airline is already a fairly safe option, but so we tend to skate around it, but there's a big class issue there. Right? The people making the policies, the people in power are the ones who are not actually dependent on walking and bikes. Right? They are being driven around in cars. So even unconsciously that bias comes in. Right? And this happens every year. You ask a incoming class of first year students on their perception of how many people own cars, and you'll get an answer saying, 70 to 80%. When it's closer to 7 to 8%. Because they, their family, all the people they know have cars. Same thing with the congestion issue, with not paying attention to pedestrians. Think of the fact that we made highways, right, with bus stops on them, with no provision for people to cross. Right? If in the morning I'm getting off at this bus stop, how am I magically going to cross across 8-10 lanes of high-speed traffic to go to the other side? And the solution now is to start building foot-over bridges. I usually tell, if I'm talking to NHAI officials and saying that why not propose every time you come to an intersection, stop the cars and make the people in cars push their car across. Right? Same thing as pedestrians are doing. Why do you have to drive across? Right?
So So I want to actually relate the vision that you talked about and the political will. I think the other layer of problem there is that the understanding that we are building good roads, and why we still have many crashes is because it is people's fault. People who are using cars, people, pedestrians, motorcyclists not wearing, अभी in political level वही आपने उनका कई बार मिस्टर गडकरी का स्टेटमेंट भी देखा होगा न्यूज़पेपर्स में जो निकलते हैं कि लोग ऐसे इनडिसिप्लिन्ड लोग हैं, वो ट्रैफिक लॉज को नहीं मानते हैं, तो हम क्या करें. So from other countries, this is the other big lesson we learned from when you look at history of traffic safety. Up to 1950s, it was the belief in those countries also. And that's when they understood that only relying on penalties, enforcement, changing users' behavior by relying on those strategies doesn't work. That's when the whole different kind of research started. And this whole idea of Vision Zero came from Sweden in late 90s only. So it's saying that sometime in future we should have zero deaths, and we can achieve that by changing the way we design our cities, the way we design our roads, and the way we design our vehicles. All three has to change. And Vision Zero, also very important thing, it's been understood and accepted at political level that people will make mistakes. It is not possible that by giving intensive training, by giving very strict penalties, no one will ever make any mistakes on the road. The fundamental thing about human beings is that we are liable to make mistakes. And also, the day it is possible that one day when you are on the road, you are rushing to see somebody in the hospital and you need to get there fast, you will forget all your traffic safety rules. So our behavior is not just, it is because of many other factors. So that's why the principle is that remember that no matter what we do, some people will make mistakes. And therefore, we have to design the road in such a way that for making that mistake, the person should not die. Even if you are under the influence of alcohol, it is not saying that you do drink and drive, but it is accepting that no matter how much control you have, some people are still doing it. But we don't want them to see them die on the road.
Or kill others.
So therefore, we have to design those roads differently. So a lot of your safety features on the road, how we are designing the sides of the road, the crash barrier, why certain speed controls. Because if a drunk person hits a pedestrian at a low speed, it will not be a fatal crash. That's the whole importance of speed control, where you have a lot of interaction. School zones के पास low speed क्यों होनी चाहिए? क्योंकि बच्चे unpredictable होते हैं. उनको आप ये नहीं कह सकते हैं कि अभी रोड मत क्रॉस करो. बच्चों का ना सिंगल फोकस अटेंशन होता है. दे सी समथिंग ऑन द रोड एंड दे जस्ट रन अक्रॉस. तो उनको बचाने के लिए मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट मेथड वी हैव इज व्हीकल्स शुड नॉट गो अबव 20 किलोमीटर्स पर आवर. क्योंकि देन अगर वही बच्चा सामने आए, यू विल बी एबल टू स्टॉप इन टाइम.
Are there any questions?
बम्पर के ऊपर whenever we drive we face lot of problems with the bumpers. हम कोई बम्पर तो कोई यूनिफॉर्म साइज नहीं होता है, कुछ बम्पर बहुत ऊंचा होता है, और कोई जगह पर हर गांव में एक बम्पर लगा दिया, हर 10 मिनट के बाद एक बम्पर.
अच्छा, स्पीड है.
Yes.
हाँ, थोड़ा सा 10 कदम जाओ एक बम्पर, 10 कदम जाओ एक बम्पर. तो इसके लिए कोई गवर्नमेंट का कोई स्ट्रेटजी है?
So the question is that there are various designs of speed breakers. So you don't know how a speed breaker is going to how you are going to deal with it. And the other is that in certain village roads there are very frequently placed speed breakers.
तो स्पीड ब्रेकर्स का पूरा इंडियन रोड्स कांग्रेस का बहुत डिटेल गाइडलाइन होता है, और जितनी स्पीड पे आप गाड़ियों को चलाना चाहते हैं उसके लिए वो अलग डिज़ाइन होती है. और ये आपका ठीक ऑब्जर्वेशन है कि सड़क पे हम देखते हैं कि कुछ भी बना देते हैं, तो वो तो मतलब पब्लिक वर्क्स डिपार्टमेंट की गलती है, क्योंकि डिज़ाइन गाइडलाइंस हैं, उनको गाइडलाइंस फॉलो करके वो करना चाहिए. हाँ, कैंपस में हम ज़रूर कह सकते हैं कि हमें पता है यहाँ पर आपकी स्पीड लिमिट 20 या 30 है, तो उसके हिसाब से जो ये मेन जहाँ से हम अगर हम हॉस्टल साइड से आ रहे हैं और हम लेफ़्ट टर्न करते हैं मेन बिल्डिंग के लिए, वो जो स्पीड हम डिज़ाइन है वो करेक्ट है। लेकिन जो अभी जहाँ पे लोग पेडेस्ट्रियन जो क्रॉस कर रहे हैं, आई थिंक वो ओवरले करके उसको ख़त्म कर दिया, उसको ठीक करना चाहिए। वहाँ पे आपका 100 mm होना चाहिए, 4 इंच का डिफरेंस, कम से कम 4 इंच का डिफरेंस, और उसका रैम्प की लेंथ कितनी है वो भी IRC गाइडलाइन से हमें एग्जैक्ट पता होती है। तो नंबर 1 IRC गाइडलाइन है, जितनी स्पीड चाहिए, अगर 50 चाहिए या 80 चाहिए या 30 चाहिए, हर एक की अलग डिज़ाइन होती है, उस डिज़ाइन को फॉलो करना चाहिए।
But what would you say about why villagers would put speed breakers?
विलेजर्स ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, क्योंकि ये विलेजर्स को खुद उनको देखा कि उनके बच्चों की डेथ हुई वहाँ, तो वहाँ पर उन्होंने, क्योंकि पहले ऐसा था कि स्टेट हाईवे वगैरह पे वो गवर्नमेंट का ये गाइडलाइन था कि वहाँ पे आप कोई भी स्पीड रिड्यूसिंग मेजर नहीं बना सकते हैं, तो वो PWD नहीं बनाते थे, तो फिर विलेजर्स ने अपने से बना लिया। और हमें एक ये भी एक्सपीरियंस हुआ कि एक हम लोग प्रोजेक्ट कर रहे थे मिनिस्ट्री के साथ, इसकी डिज़ाइन, डिटेल डिज़ाइन स्टडी करने के लिए कि कितना स्पीड लिमिट कम होता है, और हम लोगों ने कुछ विलेजेस में यहाँ एक्सपेरिमेंट किया सोनीपत के आसपास, तो उसमें फिर PWD वाले ने हम लोगों को बुलाया कि ये लोग तो गांव वाले तो मान नहीं रहे हैं, आप इन लोगों को आके समझाइए। तो उनके साथ पूरा डिस्कशन हुआ कि हम जानते हैं आपको ये प्रॉब्लम है, हम स्पीड हम हटाएंगे नहीं, खाली दूसरी डिज़ाइन लगा देंगे, और उनको पूरा समझाया कि कैसे डिज़ाइन है, कि हम गाड़ी जो 80 किलोमीटर पे आ रही है पहले उसको 60 पे करो, फिर 40 पे करो, तो उसके लिए क्या डिज़ाइन है। तो इतना डिस्ट्रस्ट, मतलब वो बिल्कुल किसी को ट्रस्ट नहीं करते विलेज वाले। पूरा उन्होंने हमसे सुनने के बाद ये कहा कि आप लोग तो फेमस इंस्टीट्यूट के, आप कहीं भी एक्सपेरिमेंट कर लीजिए, आप यहाँ क्यों एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि यहाँ हमने जो डिज़ाइन बनाई है ये ठीक है, इसके बाद किसी बच्चे की डेथ नहीं हुई। मतलब दोनों चीज़ें देखिए ना, एक तो उनको ज़रूरत है उसकी, और अगर PWD में उनका विश्वास नहीं रह गया कि वो कोई उनके भले के लिए करेंगे, तो both things are very important. Actually, there is a need, we have to answer to that need, and we have to take them into confidence that what we are doing is for your benefit. They don't have that confidence. That's why they keep doing it.
And that's why I keep saying that road safety is as much a political problem, that without political will, it will not happen. Right? Yes, we have standards, we have IRC guidelines, we have IS standards for various things, but unless there's enforcement of that, unless MORTH insists कि हर contract में enforce करेंगे and monitor करेंगे, नहीं होगा वो local contractor जो कुछ कर रहा है, it is similar to traffic enforcement, that if they know कि कुछ नहीं होने वाला, तो ठीक है, whatever works. Same thing for villages की complain कर लिया कुछ नहीं हो रहा, तो they'll make a hump, जो ट्रैक्टर चला जाएगा, छोटी गाड़ी जाएगी तो अटक जाएगी। उन्हें पता है कि छोटी गाड़ी स्पीड से जाती है, टेम्पो स्पीड से जाते हैं, तो जानबूझ के वो ऊंचा हम्प बना देते हैं।
So Girish, related to political will, I mean, one thing we observe is, people parking their vehicles
Yes, my favorite topic.
as if they are entitled to do so.
How many of you are aware, by the way, sir, what Earl is saying, that street parking is illegal anywhere in India, right? Unless the local municipal corporation has a sign saying parking zone, right? Otherwise, it is illegal. So, all of you who park on the street are, in the eyes of the law, breaking the law every day, right? And for the police to tow that away, they need not give you any warning, right? And in theory, you can be given a challan of 2000 plus every time, right? So if your car is parked and traffic police goes by 10 times a day, they can issue you 10 challans, right? It's not a single compoundable thing कि एक बार दिन में चलान दे दिया तो हो गया.
They tow it away.
Yes, they can, right? So when people say, and related to that is the fact that one of the biggest reasons why pedestrian safety becomes an issue, there is no safe space. दिल्ली में जहाँ 30 साल 40 साल पहले फुटपाथ होते थे, they're all gone. And the unfortunate thing is that the richer the area, the less easy it is to walk, except जो डिप्लोमेटिक एनक्लेव एरिया है, राइट, वहाँ कोई बाहर निकलता ही नहीं है सिक्योरिटी के लिए, बट वहाँ फुटपाथ बढ़िया है. रेस्ट ऑफ दिल्ली फुटपाथ्स आर गॉन, राइट, टेकन अप मोस्टली बाय पार्किंग, राइट. सो व्हेन पुलिस सेज एनक्रोचमेंट हो रहा है, they forget to mention that in Delhi the bulk of the encroachment is by cars, right? And I do these numbers in class with students. Ki if you start charging people rent based on how much space, an average car takes about 100 square feet when it's parked, right? We even leave aside the fact कि start करने में उसमें और थोड़ी सी जगह ले लेते हैं. आप 100 स्क्वायर फुट मानो, दिल्ली के हर जोन का MCD ने क्लासीफाई कर रखा है कितनी लैंड वैल्यू है, right? उसके बेसिस पे if you charge people rent, साउथ दिल्ली में that works out to about 50,000 rupees per year per car. So if you add a registration tag which says based on your address, right, and it has to be nationwide obviously, वरना मैं अपने चाचा के घर का एड्रेस दे दूँगा यूपी में, कि you pay this, right? And even then you limit the number of parking. Residential street में कि सिर्फ एक साइड पार्क कर सकते हैं, right? And the enforcement then has to be strict and uniform. ये नहीं कि वो MLA की गाड़ी है तो नहीं उठाएंगे. That's when, so if you free up the space, so look at it this way, look at the areas that you're familiar with, right? See how many old people or children are walking on the streets anymore. They're not, right? Because their families are afraid. My parents have stopped going to the neighborhood park क्योंकि सड़क के बीच में चलना पड़ता है, दोनों तरफ एक एक दो दो गाड़ियाँ भी खड़ी होती हैं, डबल पार्क्ड, right? And the residential streets in most areas are at most 30 feet property line to property line. बीच में दो गाड़ियाँ पार्क करते हैं. So parking is a big problem, right? And Delhi actually has a gazetted set of rules, right, which they have not enforced ever, which says it's the RWA's responsibility in colonies, right, to provide parking, off-street parking. कि जिनके घरों में है off-street को घरों में पार्क करें, जिनके नहीं है RWA is supposed to acquire land, build parking there, and then provide golf carts to take people home. Right? Merchants associations are responsible for market parking. Right? Anywhere else, if you're parked on the street, right, police can tow your car and impound it. Right? So then there's two sections of the Motor Vehicles Act, right, which make it the duty of the urban local body to make sure that pedestrians are not, it talks about safety and things, but it also says discomforted, right? So if I'm uncomfortable, I have to go up and down walking on something, that is cause enough for the municipality to authorize towing away of the vehicle. Right? And this applies 24 hours, 7 days a week. There is no such thing as कि 5 मिनट के लिए मैं अंदर गया था. The only time you can park is if you were sitting in the car, ready to move the vehicle. If you leave the car, you automatically committed a crime. So all the people who put boards, keep parking for such and such address only, this is nonsense. Right? If they are parking outside the property boundary, they are committing a crime.
So parking has another very important issue here because of course we are talking about road safety, but you know that road safety is also linked to what is called sustainable transport. In the beginning, Rahul, you talked about health impacts of transport. So if more people walk, more people use bicycle and more people use public transport, it is related to health, individual health, and you know air pollution is also related to, if more people are using walking, bicycling and public transport, vehicular pollution also goes down. So all this gets also related to now parking. Why? Because there are very interesting studies done which show that when we step out of our home, you have to go to your work, and if your vehicle is right there, at your, outside your door, and then you say, oh, you are very, you've gone after this lecture and sustainability lecture, you want to use public transport, but then you say your motorcycle or car is right there and bus stop is about 50 meters from your home or 100 meters. So the location of the parking decides which mode you are going to use. It will already tell you, okay, you feel lazy, it's so comfortable, congestion है, so what? थोड़ा music सुन लेंगे. So you just take out your car and you forget using metro or bus. So the choice of mode gets decided by where is parking. If I know that going to CP the parking is going to be a hassle, I won't be able to find it, I will not take my car and call a cab. So parking, whether it's free or not and whether available or not, will decide your choice of mode, which eventually gets linked to both to your safety as well as your health impacts.
Yeah. So actually all the countries that we were naming, having successfully reduced their road deaths, they have taken their parking very, very seriously.
Yeah.
So parking makes a lot of difference. Sorry, you were saying something.
Yeah. So actually, why you wanted to have this road safety, the major objective was basically a lot of first year students, parents, they made a lot of complaints to the dean students at the office because they see that the campus roads are not that safe for the newcomers. When they are not acquainted with the IIT ecosystem and they do not know about the road traffic. So, any suggestions for you for IIT the community how to make this campus more safe as far as that? So, if you compare it outside, obviously it is a heaven.
Yeah.
But still, the parents they think that is.
I think paver blocks like throughout.
Paver blocks.
Paver blocks, yeah. Actually, if you look at the history of, you have been here long enough.
Yeah, 21 years.
Yes, so we did this master plan for IIT maybe 20 years back only. When we started, actually, we put speed humps at every junction. If you have noticed, any junction you go, and that's when this roundabout was designed. It was a Y junction earlier. And the speed limits were fixed, that this is, you can drive, so and it was actually, we also looked at literature that every 80 meters you have to design a speed hump to maintain the low speed. So that's where when you look at from this library building, if you start going towards the faculty guest house, that's straight road, but every minor junction speed humps were put. So in that sense, I think the speed is more or less under control. Some of the humps have lost their height
Because of the repaving, yes.
overlay lanes.
Yes.
So I think we have to restore that. So first strategy would be to just ensure that by all these techniques that we have, speed calming, texture change, paver blocks, maintain the low speed. Low
And
speed
lighting.
meaning 20 to 30. Don't let vehicles go above 30.
And enforcement has to be uniform. It should not be कि the guard says अच्छा ये तो senior faculty हैं कुछ नहीं करेंगे. Right? The minimum they can do is note down. सबके पीछे tag होता है. Note down the number and report to you.
And I think one problem is that the humps are reducing in their effectiveness because of the repaving, so we should bring them back. Also, like some crossings from the library to the canteen area, staff canteen area, that crossing is very busy, but the speeds don't reduce. So I think there you need, what's called the tabletop speed breakers. Yeah, exactly. It needs, and one problem is, if you go in the morning, whenever the classes are going to happen, you can see on that straight road from library to the faculty guest house, you have lots of people walking on the street. And I think that's because we have a problem that the footpath that goes along the football field, it is on the embankment. It is not very convenient. So I think that is a problem.
There's
But
obstruction.
I
that
also
is-
think, that this campus should have pedestrian priority.
Yeah.
Students have every right to be on the main carriageway. And I think if there is a vehicle coming at that time and somebody tries to honk, you have to, students or pedestrians should just make it very clear, it is your priority. The vehicle has to go slow, even if it's 10 kilometers per speed limit. So be it. I think ये आपको थोड़ा publicize करना चाहिए amongst faculty members also. This is a student priority campus, which means pedestrian priority.
और एक चीज
Students are allowed to walk and bicycle everywhere. They cannot be restricted only to
See,
pedestrian.
every evening I see faculty impatiently horn बजा रहे होते हैं to students going to the hostels. That
वो
has to be a
गलत है।
strict no-no, right?
Yeah.
The guards need to be instructed कि आप उनके number note करो और उनके HOD के through, किसके भी through formal complaints need to be filed. First of all, the campus में faculty गाड़ी में आई क्यों रहे हैं?
Let's hear from the students.
So the junction near the Rajdhani canteen that had a few touch and go brushes in the past 2-3 months because I live in Saptagiri Hostel. So we have seen a couple of touch and go incidents happening, especially in the morning session, 8 o'clock class, lunch.
वो जहाँ पे dip है.
Yes.
Yeah.
तो visibility का
No, the speed humps on 4 sides. Exactly.
Because people come from the mess quarter side, they are
Yeah.
speeding. People who come from the Nalanda ground side, they are speeding because it's a slope. It's a slope from this side also, and there are no speed controls.
I think that road definitely needs redesigning.
All 4 sides we have to do proper. So maybe you can prepare a design and then pass it on to the admin. They can implement.
But I also think that this road needs to be redesigned completely.
Yeah.
It's the too many pedestrians are overspilling on it because they need to use it, and the footpath that goes along the football field is not adequate. Akansha, you were saying something.
It's not comfortable for the pedestrians to walk on the football ground side because it's too crowded.
Yeah, it is not. It is narrow also, and it's not. It doesn't seem connected.
That's why I said let them be still on the road.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying something.
So we were conducting a small study to understand the behavior of how people travel to classes from hostels to LHC, and the major problem that we got to know was the universal design problem, where the students who are not able to use the footpaths, they were the perception is that people were thinking it's safe because IT is relatively better than the outside environment, but the understanding from the perspective of people who are actually not comfortable using the ramps, and because the fear is
People
that
on
they'll fall
wheelchair.
back.
the ramps are too steep.
So then they are compelled to use that road. And then in the morning it becomes a problematic thing because if you see the road near our hostel, from the girls' hostel to the LHC, it's like we have lesser speed bumps. So then they are fearful of using the roads.
No, so do you want to repeat the question?
So, I mean, the question here is that sometimes universal accessibility is also an issue. There is a subset of population who have to use wheelchairs, and that means the footpaths have to be accessible for them. So, for example, one problem she has pointed out is the slope of the footpath access is very steep. So, the people who are on wheelchair are too scared to take it. So
2 suggestions. One is that of course we know for making it universal, compliant with universal design principles, the slope has to be 1:12. So that can easily be fixed. All slopes of footpaths can be done. And second is of course that what mentioned earlier, that the number of pedestrians is too high. So at present, even if we have 2 meter, 2.5 meter wide footpath, that may not be adequate. So maybe at peak hour, you can have a notification that all roads, vehicles should expect students and pedestrians on the main carriage, and you cannot go above 10 kilometers, you have to give them right of way. It's like at that moment, for those initial few hours, it is pedestrian priority. You should not be honking, you should not be, getting irritated that students are there. I mean, I think it's their right to be there.
And I think one simple thing, intervention is needed is looking at the speed breakers once more. No, because
I think one of our PhD students will work out some design and share it.
because if the repaving has completely made them ineffective, there's
Yeah,
no
that has
then
to
they
be redone.
yeah, exactly. Yes, please.
So, ma'am, can I conclude that through this discussion, you are putting more importance on the planning and design of the road, so that leads to the safety.
100%. Maybe you missed the beginning because that's what we were discussing. That our behavior on the road, if being globally understood, is largely influenced by the infrastructure design itself. Where are we?
I think
walking,
he has a
where are we
question
crossing?
coming. I think he has a question coming.
So inside IIT, like designs, like road designs are these are good. So these are good because we have someone to be like accountable. But what if who are accountable like outside of this IITs or some other like who?
Public
who,
Works
like,
Department, the road owning agencies.
Well, there are like 7 agencies I think.
No.
Ones are roads.
Road is the mandate of Public Works Department in Delhi, or some roads belong to NCD. And National Highway is responsibility of National Highway Authority. We have state highways, which is again responsibility of Public Works Department. So the road right of way, of course, you have water pipe there, sewer pipe there, electricity, all those agencies are coming, but the mandate to make the road and maintain it lies with the road owning agency.
See, politically it would be the PWD, right? In theory is reportable to your local MLA. Right? So the first point would be through the MLA. Right? The MLA's responsibility to work with the PWD to get things fixed. So PWD is responsible for a large amount of the roads in Delhi. Right? Some parts of it, CPWD will be like in IIT campus is CPWD. It's a central institute. Some parts at the periphery where the national highway goes, that's NHAI. But the bulk of the roads in Delhi is PWD.
Main road.
So there is no confusion about what the road,
Yeah,
who the road belongs
owning
to.
agency is clear.
That is very clear.
I think there are a lot of conflicts like case studies going on who is accountable because even in I think 2022 this near the Pragati Maidan also underway fast tunnel has been inaugurated for like it was worth 700 crores. Like it became dysfunctional after 2 years only. So that was
You
even
can
inaugurated
easily
by
say
PWD.
it is the people who constructed and the road owning agency.
Yes, so now they
They are
are doing the
responsible.
same game. Like L&T constructed that, so L&T is saying we have we got the problem for PWDs and PWDs are saying we have problem from LCD because that's are not well designed. Then they say it is not coming under area because there is a state
See,
highways going on.
forget the blame game part, but to your original question,
Like they're
right?
just passing
The
the buck.
agency responsible is PWD. Right?
Yeah.
They have to resolve the conflict and do that. So, as a resident, from your perspective, you can hold PWD accountable. Right?
Yeah.
PWD cannot point finger, that's the internal problem. Right?
And they
They
are
have
the
to
ones
deal-
responsible for consultant also.
Yeah, they cannot point a finger at L&T because they hired L&T, right? The responsibility is theirs.
Yeah, it is.
Sir, if you are saying like that, like I think the main problem is with the not only L&T, the problem lies in even the L1 contract itself because we have that bidding system.
All those things are there.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
So,
Absolutely.
Like again, we are going into another rabbit hole. Like we are following, if we are following rules of L1 contract, so I cannot afford L&T for other project. That will again bound to fail. So like.
That's
we
how
are
So
not-
I don't want to go. I don't want to go into that discussion because we have to finish. We
it's a
have,
governance issue. That's
Yeah.
all.
So ma'am, okay, you.
no, agreed. I mean, this is definitely an
That's
issue.
not a trivial topic.
Yeah.
It requires its own seminar.
Sorry, go on.
As Professor Tiwari, right?
Yes.
Ma'am, as you are saying that we have to make our designs and the designs of the roads and pedestrian walkways fail safe, but I have grown up in this country and I've seen that there is a innate culture of getting around the rules, getting around the queue.
Can I ask you that one thing?
Maybe let him complete first.
There's one basic thing.
I maybe used the wrong adjective. It's
No,
not
no,
innate.
that's-
It's not innate. It's something we acquire from our environment. But there's a habit of getting around the queue. How can I jump the queue? This is the tendency, and you see this on the road. I mean, you can see this anywhere. So unless, in my opinion, I mean there are collective things that we have to do. We have to focus on the design as well as on a collective civic sense, and unless that is developed, in my opinion, no amount of safe designs can help us. If, for example, you on this Yamuna Expressway, they had this speeding issue. First, the speed limit was I think 120, and then they gradually reduced it by installing speed traps. So now the people know where the speed traps are located. So they slow down near the speed traps and speed up for the rest of the way. And then we come to the enforcement. On highways, it's really difficult to enforce rules. I mean, where are you going to put the enforcement agency? Okay, you are installing speed traps, they have found a way out of that. There was an incident in Unnao, I think the last one, a bus crashed. The bus driver was speeding. Then there is this issue with the licensing system. Even if you address all that, unless the person who is driving or walking takes his safety and the safety of the people around him into concern, I don't think.
So this is a good question towards the end of the talk.
Yeah.
Because I will try to unpack it one by one, and then Girish and Rahul, all three of us can
Yeah.
add to it.
And
right?
but I should tell you that none of the topics that you raised is specific to India. This is global issue.
Global issue,
All that you
that's
pointed
how
out.
I will address it. Yeah.
So one more question. Any other question? Yes.
So I just wanted to ask that is there any sort of correlation between toll taxes and reduction of the rate of toll taxes and the reduction of accidents?
We don't know.
No. The answer is
Yeah,
no.
right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a query. It is the safety of kids traveling in motor vehicles, especially with their elderly ones, without this protection. Without
Yeah.
any norm.
Yeah.
Can
Okay,
I
let's,
add to that one of the most dangerous things that people do is carry kids in their lap, in the front seat, right? And
Sometimes standing.
so that's the equivalent of using your kid as a additional airbag. Right? However strong you are, you cannot hold on to a kid. Physically your arms are not
actually there
capable.
are international laws that you cannot carry your children in the front seat, especially in your lap. It is extremely high risk. You have to put them in the rear seat. But I
Yes.
want to address this last question.
Yeah.
So you started with that, that unless we change our behavior and consider it to others, we cannot change it. So I want to start with, okay, you say we have a habit of jumping the queue. Suppose I take an example of, as a pedestrian, we are waiting at a red light. And after some time we see the right is still left, and many pedestrians start crossing, they don't care about the light turning green. Global understanding is that anywhere in the world, if pedestrians have to wait more than 30 seconds, people get impatient. It's not about being Indian or Delhiite or German, anywhere in the world. So by design, how we try to influence it, that we can design the signal system in such a way that the wait time comes down. If the maximum wait time does not exceed 60 seconds, most people are going to comply with it. And so, but over time, if on the road people who are walking, they see that every day you have to wait for 3 minutes, it's just not worth waiting for red light to turn green. And people take their own decisions to cross the road. This is one. Second, you are saying, so I'm taking the pedestrian example. Second, you said that, let me take the bus. You said that the bus was speeding. Vehicles, buses, cars speeding on highway is not uncommon at all. Speed, when we make very good surface roads, wide lane, straight roads, that induces high speed behavior. But the way we try to make roads safer is that if the bus was speeding and the driver even slept for a fraction of a second, the vehicle will go off the carriageway. That's when the forgiving road design comes into play. How you design the shoulders, how you design the crash barriers, that the bus hits the crash barrier, it should not overturn, and the barrier should be able to contain the bus, and no one should die. People will get injured, but no serious injury. So therefore, speeding of the bus or driver making error on the highway is to be expected. And we have to design the forgiving roads keeping that in mind. This is how people have got success in other countries, not by changing the culture. Because the same, as an Indian, you go abroad, you go to US, soon you will find yourself driving like them.
Yeah.
Because the roads are designed differently. And over time, then you will also find that your peers are driving differently. So it's not about, again and again we have to understand, especially as a scientific community, our driving behavior is not independent of infrastructure design.
See,
It is coming because of
Another
infrastructure
also,
design.
right? So that's what you stole my line there. No?
That was Professor Mohan's very old example.
When people come into this country, right? Whatever country they're coming from, they start driving like. I came back to India after almost 30 years in the US. Within a couple of weeks, I was doing point and shoot driving. Right? Wherever there's a gap, that's where I take my car. It is a systemic issue. How is your infrastructure? Right? How is enforcement? So you're looking at everybody else, and everybody else is driving based on what they see around them. So it's not, you cannot as a people say, oh, Indians are so bad at civic sense.
So, sorry, we need to wrap up now.
Yes.
But
And-
feel free to come to Trip Center sometime and we can have more longer discussion.
Yes, yes.
एक मैडम आपका जो रिसर्च स्कॉलर थे उसे if they can give us some suggestion for the campus safety.
हाँ,
Yes.
That would be a
That's
really good
fantastic.
input.
पूरा ड्राइंग सेट बना के दे देंगे आपको. That's the job of PhD scholars.
No, definitely. I mean, one thing that should come out.
seriously, you all should get together, we will get it done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
Something
wonderful.
से बोल के
That will be
आपने-
wonderful.
Yeah,
And we'll make sure that we'll enforce that happens.
That's wonderful.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank